It's been about a year and a half since India and the United States, which are not only significant defense partners but also major economic partners, started negotiating a trade deal between the two countries. And the concessions that the US was supposed to give included the removal of reciprocal tariffs, in fact, reduction of the same from as high as 25% to 18%. Now, that concession had in fact come only after the US had imposed tariffs, the highest tariffs on India than any of the other country. Not only India faced reciprocal tariffs from the US, it also faced additional 25% tariff because of buying Russian oil. Now, with the US Supreme Court striking down that particular reciprocal tariff and holding it invalid, that concession at the moment is not there. So what the India-US trade deal really entail at the moment, and why are the negotiations stuck, like many experts have pointed out? So while there have been a lot of discussions, statements, positive statements emerging from both sides, whether it is the United States or India, experts have pointed out that trade negotiations remain stuck somewhere. And where they're stuck, that is exactly what we are trying to find out today. And we have with us Ajay Srivastava ji, the head of Global Trade Research Initiative, which happens to be a major body here in India that not only is a major think tank on India's trade equations with other countries, but also looks at our GDP and the internal and external trade dynamics of the country. So thank you so much for sparing your time for India Abroad. It's lovely to have you here. You have been following this major, so to say, subject for a long time now, and the media has also been tracking it for almost ever since the negotiations began. But I'd like to ask you, at the moment, what do you see, the status of the trade deal? We've seen just, a couple of days, the Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal has said that, only 1% of the trade deal is remaining, but the US has to give the concessions to India that it needs and the preferential treatment over its competitors in the US market. Where do you think the trade deal stands at the moment, and what is delaying it?
Thanks, Shikha. Thanks for inviting me to the show. So things are almost mathematically clear in the India-US trade deal, almost mathematically. If I invite a 10-year-old to your show and we tell the story, he or she can very well decide where the deal stands. It's not 99% done deal right now. It stands in perfect limbo, and I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
So in a trade deal, what happens? Both the sides, they offer some concessions. So in this deal also, US offered some concessions. India also agreed to offer some concessions. Now suddenly, because of US Supreme Court decision, US side of concessions, they evaporated in a thin air. So US today has nothing to offer to India. So only Indian concessions they stand. So if one side offer evaporates, then there is no deal. Right now, both the sides are trying to understand what US has to offer. So right now, nobody knows what is on offer from the US side, and that's why all this delay.
Right. The US ambassador to India, Sergio Gore, has been repeatedly commenting about how close India and US are at reaching at a conclusion of the trade deal and finalizing the trade deal. And in the past, I think for the past 4 months, he has reiterated at least 4 to 5 times that it is 99% done and only 1 to 2% is remaining. Just about 2 weeks back, he made a similar statement at an event at US itself and said that, the delay was because of the offset was based on the IIEEPA of the US, and now it has to be based on something else. Now, given that the Supreme Court of the US has struck down those tariffs, what offset is he talking about? Is the US in a position to, give the offset? What is it about?
So let's understand what happens in a trade deal. In a trade deal, both the sides cut their normal customs duties. We call them most favored nation custom duties. It's a WTO term, which means a country will charge same tariff from all countries on a particular product. So term is MFN. So in a trade deal we do with the whole of the world, both the sides cut their MFN tariffs. In the US trade deals with not only India but any other country, US will not cut its MFN tariffs, but other side they are expected to cut their MFN tariffs. And in what US was willing to do, they imposed an illegal tariff. It's called reciprocal tariff, which Supreme Court, US Supreme Court on February 20th held it illegal violation of EPA Act on February 20th. So US side bargain is totally gone. So now what happens is that forget about India, countries like Japan, South Korea, economies like European Union, they already have trade deals with the US and they feel US side of concession is gone. So how we are going to justify the existing deals to our domestic audience? It has become one-sided. India has not signed the deal, but India was in the process of signing the deal. So this question was there. US is very much aware of this, that countries will soon be walking out. In fact, Malaysia walked out of the deal because of this reason. And so US, being US, they thought of putting some other tariffs on countries to prevent them from walking out of the trade deals. So what they did is they started Section 301 investigations on 2 counts. One is countries are using forced labor in their products, making of their products. And second is some countries who have excess capacities. And strangely, US has started its negotiations against 60 economies, and most of them they are economies with which US has done trade deal. Now it creates another problem. Suppose I am European Union, I am Japan or South Korea. I say, oh my God, I have done trade deal. It has become one-sided. Still I am not working out the trade deal. Now new investigations. What for? So trade deal is not offering any peace to me. So India, everybody watches this. That's why I say you put a 10-year-old and ask his or her opinion. It will be very clear where is the US side of deal. So even if US imposes some tariffs, we are hearing that if US gives us competitive rates, no, they are not allowed by the US president is not allowed by the US Congress to offer any cuts in the MFN tariffs. All they can impose is additional tariffs, and competitive tariffs means they will impose less tariffs on India, more on others. That's what people are talking. But these are all illegal tariffs. They are not settled. That's why I say the delay is there, because of there is a total confusion on what the US has to offer.
So you gave a broad overview of the trade deal, and of course we are learning that the concession that the Americans were offering us has gone. But still, there are many sticking points that not only experts but even farmer leaders have mentioned that there are sticking points between India and US over this trade deal, whether it is opening the market access on the agriculture sector of India, which we have held for a very long time. We've kept it close so that, because 58% of our population is dependent on agriculture, and opening that sector means that you are, bringing competition for our local producers in a very big way, in a very major way. Now, apart from the agriculture, are there any other sticking points? Is it, are the labor laws the sticking points, the intellectual property rights the sticking points, and how do you see these sticking points being addressed, if at all?
So Shikha, we do not have many details right now. The details we have, they are less than half a page, and they are written very clearly on the India-US joint statement that was issued on February 6. So what's written there is that US will be cutting its reciprocal tariff from 25% to 18%. In return, India will be doing 4 or 5 things. So what are those 4 or 5 things? One, India will be eliminating tariffs on most of its industrial products and some of the agriculture products. Some agriculture products are mentioned, for example, fresh and processed fruits, animal feed, and it's written, and some more items. What is some more? There are few hundred or how many items, we don't know. So unless we get the full list, we don't know. There is a talk, but it remains at the talk level. We don't have any document to say this, that US is pressing for export of GM, genetically modified foods. Farmers are agitated because of that.
In fact, farmers have pointed out that these GM crops, if they enter the market, then it is going to be very destructive for them.
Yes, because GM, once it goes into the field, it will be part of the earth, and then entire crop cycle will be vitiated. We are a non-GM country, proudly so far. So farmers, plus we don't know what else. US is pressing for agriculture opening. We have rightfully being very conservative in all our FTAs not to open basic agriculture. In this also, I think government will take a call and not open basic agriculture. But to be fair, we don't have many details to talk. Only these things are in the public domain about the agriculture. Third is which worries me more than I'm worried about other counts is both the countries, US and India. India will be aligning with the US security and economic policies. This worries me no end. This means if US considers some country as its enemy, that country will be enemy of India also.
Right.
No, we are going to become third largest economy. We are a sovereign country. We cannot run our foreign policy or security policy based on the dictates of the US.
Okay.
And fourth, they want our digital policy. They want free run to their tech firms in India. That we don't want right now. And fifth is that they want any checks. For example, if say medical we put stents in the heart, so we put price caps for that. They say all those such restrictions should go. So they want a lot, and their agenda is so big. They want fundamental changes in our agriculture. For example, they are opposed to our MSP. This is not part of the trade deal, but they express in writing. Their reports say they want our MSP to go. They want all the agriculture restrictions to go.
Right.
So if we agree to them, and I'm sure government is not going to agree with them, that's why all these delays are there.
Right. Sir, given that, this is the kind of statements that we are witnessing from both sides, the statements that are flowing in from the US side and also from the Indian side, whether it is the Indian Commerce Minister or the US Ambassador to India, Sergio Gore especially has been pushing very hard to send a message that the trade deal is well on track and that it is going to be through very soon, and just a few things are left and just the offset and everything is done. But on-ground reality is a little different from what is being, projected as of now. You had mentioned in one of your reports where you'd studied the issue in detail that Washington at the moment is now effectively asking India to negotiate on the basis of benefits that it can no longer offer to India. In that scenario, would want to ask you, what do you see as the future? Do you think that there is ever going to be a common ground, and how soon can we get that? Because both countries have, in principle, shown the intent that we are going to sign the trade deal. But, of course, there's too much a slip between the cup and the lip. So can we say that, how soon can we say that, that can happen? And if that happens, what can the US offer to us?
So US is an important trading partner for us. We would love to have a trade deal, but like most trade deals of India, we want to have a balanced deal. Trade deals are not charity. So we'll not offer anything until we get something of the same amount in return. US has nothing to say to us today. All they want is they want this from India, they want that from India. What they have to offer, it's not clear even to them. Forget about us.
So you say that there's lack of clarity.
There is lack of clarity, or if I say they, like Sergey Gore or others who are talking, were very optimistic. They know something which is not in the public domain. People like me don't know.
Right. Sir, you mentioned that there happens to be lack of clarity. We are also looking at the 301 investigations that have been initiated by the US on 60 countries, including India. There are countries like Nepal also that are facing similar investigations. Do you see that aspect also impacting the US-India trade deal, and how do you see this impacting, if at all?
My reading is that US started 301 investigations to deal with the bad impact of the US Supreme Court judgment, which held that reciprocal tariffs illegal. So they thought, let's replace these tariffs, reciprocal tariff, with some other tariff, Section 301 tariffs. It's not going to be easy for them, but the intent was this only, so that earlier they say 25% to 18% will impose reciprocal tariff on India. Now they no more exist. So we say, okay, tariffs are tariffs. If not reciprocal, let it be Section 301 tariffs. So, but if they do that, world will be laughing at them. How? That means your investigation process is totally jeopardized, totally compromised.
Yeah.
You are doing it for some other ends. So that US is a smart country. I hope sanity prevails. They don't do this.
So, are you trying to convey that the Section 301 tariffs, if at all, India and the other countries also that have signed trade deals with the US, Malaysia has recently walked out, by the way. So, countries that are looking to sign a trade deal with the US is going to use the 301 investigations as a leverage to gain more points, to score more access, to have more benefits out of those countries, and in the lieu, give them relaxation from the 301 proceedings. Is that what you want to convey?
Yes. So, say earlier, their side of bargain was reciprocal tariff. That is gone, so they have to search for other bargain. Section 301 tariffs could be that other bargain that may be in their mind, but I'm very clear it's not going to work, because US will be attracting a lot of adverse attention of compromise the investigations on Section 301 if they do this.
So you think that there is going to be some checks and balance within the US, or is there no chance?
I am very impressed with the way institutions they function in US. We have seen it's not only the Supreme Court which held IPA tariffs illegal. Supreme Court was the fourth court, below three courts below Federal Court, Indian Court of International Trade. They all, in one voice, they say all these tariffs are illegal. Because if you read that IPA legal text, you will know its president is exceeding his authority. So the only hope is from the US internal institutions. I don't hope from any other country to resist US policies. No Europe, no Japan, no South Korea, nobody has the courage to even say a word against the US. I think only China stands up to them, and now we have seen Iran talks about them, but no other country has the guts. So the sincere hope the world can have is from the US internal institutions like Congress or Supreme Court again.
So are you hinting at something of a development around November? November we have midterm elections in the US.
I think this should worry them a lot, because the prices initially increased in the US because of high tariffs. Yes. Now, fortunately, high tariffs are gone because of courtesy Supreme Court decisions. And if they impose some more high tariffs, it will be further more adverse reactions which Mr. Trump may not like. Yes. So I think even if he imposes Section 301 tariff, they will be modest compared to the IPA tariffs.
So, in November is going to be an important month for US. The midterm elections are going to be there, and the key reason why geopolitical experts also say that US has signed a memorandum of understanding with Iran was primarily the November elections, and because President Trump has to face the people around that time. Can we also say that this might be a major reason why the US is trying to push for a trade agreement with India and other countries, so that at least there is some, something that they can, project to the domestic audience also as something positive that they have been able to achieve over these months, given the fact that the popularity of the US president has also declined?
Yeah, this could be a reason for them, because they were able to seek out trade agreements with major economies. European Union, Japan, South Korea, most of the ASEAN countries. So India and China were the biggest countries left. China, they didn't initiate the trade agreement. So India was the only large country remaining. So they would love to have an agreement with us at their terms.
Right. Sir, you've also mentioned in one of your reports that the US-India trade deal at the moment looks like more sort of a giving away one-way market access from the Indian side and resembles more so a one-way access to the Indian market rather than a balanced and equitable trade pact. Do you still stand by this, and do you see any change in that proposition?
I say you ask a 10-year-old boy, he will tell the same thing. What US is giving, nobody knows. Their ambassadors don't know, our ministers don't know. No, even US doesn't know. So it's only us who are proposed to be giving to them. So deal is one-sided. It's very clear. That's why it's being delayed.
Right. So the USI's PF President Mukesh Aghi had recently mentioned that the remaining differences over the India-US trade deal are relatively narrow but politically significant. But he also added that they were politically significant. And he also says that India would like to have a preferential treatment and a fair tariff, which is why and which is where the deal is stuck at the moment. How do we explain this to our viewers? What exactly did he mean by this preferential treatment? And can the US really offer it to India?
This is totally a wordplay. It means nothing. It means nothing to me. Right now, what US is going to offer is zero. Nobody knows this. So we say we are fairly at the advanced stage or we need competitive things. No, it means nothing to me. If you tell me what you are going to offer, then I can say, okay, deal is good, deal is bad. But right now, from their side, nothing is there. So nobody can make a comment. There is no deal. It's only one-sided concessions. One-sided concessions are not given to the developed countries. So what happens, there is a term called GSP, very poor countries. So big countries like India or US, they give unilateral one-sided access to the least developed countries. But here it's the reverse. The most developed countries asking for one-sided access. That's not going to come.
Right. Clearly, that has been one point that has been mentioned by a lot of trade analysts that the US has suddenly started exhibiting overtures that are usually displayed by countries that are least developed rather than country one of the most developed or the most developed country in the world. That aside, the US Deputy Secretary of State Christopher Lando had made a very controversial and very significant statement that in fact expose the kind of relationship that we have with that India has vis-a-vis the US. He had also said that US is not going to repeat the same mistake as it made vis-a-vis the Chinese 20 years ago when they let China in, and it basically what it was perceived by the geopolitical observers was that what he meant was that they let China in and the Chinese started challenging the US dominance itself, and that is something that they would not want to repeat with India. Now, this sparked a major controversy in India, and rightly so, because not only but it came at a time when not only India and US were trying to negotiate a trade deal, but there were also there were also other sticking points between the two countries at that point of time. However, that said, do you see that statement was more closer to truth than the other statements that we've seen from the US ambassador to India, or the other leaders of the country, whether it is the US Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who's also expressed that India happens to be a very major partner, and there have been more statements from the president himself, who has said that he loves India, he loves, of course he's also mentioned that he loves the Prime Minister, but he loves India, he loves the Indian people, and he's tried to send positive messages. But this statement of Christopher Lando, do you think that this has exposed the kind of irony of the situation and also the the vulnerability of Indo-US relationship?
So I just see this statement as a desperate statement from a declining power, official of a declining power. US tried to contain China, they could not. Now they accepted China as a G2, two great powers like equals. So that has changed their attitude towards Asia and other countries. Earlier they were using India, Australia, Japan to contain China. This supply chain resilience, China plus one, Indo-Pacific Economic Framework, and so many things, Quad, they were all part of this. Now US has given up on China. China cannot be contained. So that's why their change in attitude towards India also is there. India cannot be used to contain China because we ourselves cannot contain China. So India has to be used as a market. So for that, it's a one-sided overture. India has to give, US has to take. US has nothing to offer to India. That's why all these statements are there. And they're not in position to help very much India or help China. It's a declining power, and we'll see it decline further at an accelerated rate in the next few years. I don't want to read much into this. It's just an outburst of a declining power.
So, given that the kind of scenario and the way the sticking points still continue to remain when it comes to the trade deal, would want to really ask you, what do you see as a future of this trade deal? I mean, given the fact that both countries have exhibited willingness to sign a trade deal, given whatever sticking points have been remaining, whether it is on the agriculture front or whether it is on the front of preferential treatment and more market access from the US side. But do you see that these negotiations are going to be ending soon, and what do you see as a future?
So I would love India to have a trade deal with US. US is our biggest trading partner. So I would love both the countries they enter into negotiations, but trade deal has to be balanced. It cannot be one-sided. Both the sides should balance a deal, and I would love to have a deal that was pre-Trump era deals, where both the countries cut their MFN tariffs and offer concessions in services, investment, technology and other things on equal footing, like we are doing deals with other countries. Same with the US. US was also doing similar deals with other countries pre-Trump era. Trump era deals, they are high pressure, where they are not allowed by the Congress to cut their MFN tariffs. They are conjuring some tariffs out of thin air, like IPA tariffs, reciprocal tariffs, and pressurizing countries to offer one-sided concession in return for those IPA tariffs which are gone. So no, we don't want to negotiate trade agreement under duress. We would love to have an agreement, but we would love to have a classical agreement which was happening in pre-Trump era.
So if I may just come across that particular agreement, the contours of that agreement that we were trying to have, how different was that from this particular agreement?
Oh, they were very, so there were 3-4 parts of the FTAs. So first is both the sides cut their MFN tariffs. So if say bike goes in your country at 5%, in my country it comes at 20%, both the sides agree to make it zero. Okay. Right now, if I do a deal with US, that 5% US will remain 5%. Over and above, they say IPA tariff or Section 301 tariff or 20%, 25%, 50%. They will cut that from 50% or 25% to 18%. 5 is still I have to pay. Me, I have to cut everything here. So this is unheard of. This is the creation of Trump's mind, which their Congress or their Supreme Court is not supporting. So I don't want trade deal on those terms. I want the trade deal which other countries do with each other. Right. So that trade deal is most welcome with America. They are our biggest trading partner. I would love to have that, and I think we should wait for a few months. Things will be clearer.
Right. Sir, would want to really ask you about the trade deals which we've already signed with a lot of other countries also. You have studied them in depth, and they have been, I was reading your reports only, your think tank has mentioned that there have been several trade deals that India initially signed speedily and ended up giving too many concessions and ended up getting very few in return from some of the countries. The other trade deals that India has recently signed have still been more balanced. If you can just touch upon some of them, which of the FTAs or the trade deals that we've signed with other countries you think are much better off in terms of concessions to India and more equitable, and which have been the deals that you think really ended up opening Indian market and India didn't really get too many concessions there?
So there is a running format, running result in most of our FTAs, and we should not isolate the FTAs. That result is that exports to the FTA partners countries are increasing, but imports are increasing at double the rate. For example, if I say the FTAs with ASEAN, Japan and South Korea, we did this in 2010-11, so we have 15 years now. So imports from trade deficit from these countries, ASEAN, Japan, South Korea, it increased 3 times in last 15 years. But trade deficit from rest of the world increased by just half, 1.5 times. Ideally, it should have been reversed. Why do we do FTAs? To promote our exports. But trade deficit is increasing. That means imports are rising at bigger rate than rest of the world. It should have been reversed. So this is about the old. New, the same trend continues. If I talk about data for say our recent FTAs which we signed 3-4 years back with UAE, with Switzerland, Norway, or Mauritius and Australia, our exports are about $48 billion last year. Imports are $100 billion. So that story goes, and I don't see it's the fault of negotiators. Why this is happening, we have to understand, because our tariffs are very high. Suppose our tariffs on a particular say mobile phone is 40%. If China, suppose our trading partner is Australia. Suppose Australia supplies us smartphones. So they have to supply $100 worth of smartphone at $140, 40% duty. When duty is gone, they'll be supplying it $100 only. Whole of the world will supplying it $140. So they get 40% big advantage. So anyone who is supplying to Indian market get a big price advantage immediately after signing the FTA. Doesn't happen to our exporters because say Australia, their tariffs are already low. For example, we are doing this FTA with UK. Half the products they go at zero tariffs right now without the FTA. So other half only will benefit. There also average tariffs are 4 to 6%.
Right.
So price advantage we get is very small, and that's why export grows at a slower pace, imports at a much higher pace. So this is built in. How it can be reversed? You increase the product diversity. You diversify your product base, make better products so that your manufacturing increases, exports increase. That's the only route.
Right.
So FTAs make the field open. They don't change the competitiveness. In fact, they worsen the competitiveness. Earlier, that shadow, the wall of tariff was there. That is gone. So only the best product will win. So we have to focus on making better products.
Right. If I may also touch upon the UK-India FTA, because that is coming in force on 15th of July, just a couple of days more. How do you see this impacting the Indian market?
UK, our exports, merchandise exports, the UK last year were $13.4 billion only. And I say about $7 billion worth of goods like petroleum products, like pharmaceuticals, like most of the electronics, they already enter without the FTA at zero tariffs in UK market. So they will not gain anything from this UK FTA. But remaining very important products like garments, textiles, made-ups, low-end engineering goods, handicraft, they attract 6 to 10% tariffs.
Right.
And once UK removes the tariffs from these, the exports of these will increase. But there is a caveat here. Yeah, UK is a rich consumer market. Their per capita income exceeds, I think, £50,000 per year, and so the just lower price will not do. Only those exporters who can supply highest end goods will be able to survive and thrive, not others.
Right. So is that a win-win situation, or is it again an imbalance kind of a situation that we?
No, it's a good. So UK is a developed country market, and it's good. We are having an FTA, and our exports will have some challenges, but they will grow at a modest rate. The way people say it's a mother of all trade deal, it's all has no
that
base.
That is for the EU trade deal.
Okay.
That is for
okay.
the
I read yesterday somebody talking about this UK trade deal also.
Also,
but
the
no.
yeah, okay.
Yes. So nothing like that. Growth will be modest. That's all I can say.
So my last question I'll ask you. You have studied most of the trade deals that India has signed with the trading partners. Which of these trade deals, from your lens, is the most equitable and the most fair distribution of give and take?
So I say, so I think all the trade deals, they are equitable. I'll tell you how. To understand this point, I cannot say that this one is good, this one is bad, and I say this before that I qualify that I negotiated most of these trade deals, which happened before 2022. So I negotiated with the EU, EFTA, Australia, Japan. So I was part of negotiating team in all these. So I say they are all equitable. How I am saying this? In a trade deal, you are supposed to be cutting tariffs on most products except some. For example, we cut tariffs on 80 to 90% of products. We don't cut tariffs on, say, agriculture and some products like automobiles, we don't cut tariff. So we open all these products. And but as I mentioned that our imports are growing at higher pace than exports because of our tariff profile. Our initial tariffs are very high, so FTA trading partner gets immediate price advantage when 20% or 100% comes to zero. They get that much price advantage. We don't get that because their tariffs are already low. So one of the learnings of the FTA exercise is that you lower your MFN tariff for everybody. So make it more equitable for the world, even for the countries who don't have an FTA with you. That's what most developed countries have done already.
Right. So clearly, Ajay Srivastava highlighting the pros and cons of not only the India-US trade deal, but also the trade deals that we've signed with other nations. But a very crucial aspect that he has touched upon is that while signing the India-US trade deal is in the benefit of both the countries, at the moment there is almost next to possibly zero that US side is offering to India, given the fact that the Supreme Court of the country has struck down the reciprocal tariffs, and that is the reason why the negotiations remain in limbo at the moment. But in the coming days, it remains to be seen whether the US is able to offer India the offset, the much discussed offset that it has been discussing in the media as well. And we are going to track this closely and look at it from all angles and dissect it like none else. For more such in-depth interviews, for more such in-depth stories, keep watching India Abroad and stay tuned. Keep commenting, keep replying, keep subscribing. This is Shikha Salaria from New Delhi for India Abroad.